Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into Hercule Poirot and the Widow of the Red Lantern, a fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1: A Fatal Invitation. The scream echoed through the damp corridors of the Red Lantern estate, piercing the stillness of the late afternoon like a dagger through silk. In the flickering candlelight, where shadows danced upon the walls, a figure lay sprawled across the plush Persian carpet, blood seeping from a wound that carved a stark path through the white of the shirt. Miss Edith Hargrove, the illustrious hostess, had just been announced dead, murdered it seemed, mere moments before her own grand tea was set to commence. A gathering of intrigue was about to begin, only now it stood marred by a brutal act that shattered the morning's careful preparations. Hercule Poirot, impeccably dressed and impeccably composed, stood at the threshold of the ornate drawing-room, his perfectly manicured fingers resting lightly upon his chin. The tableau before him was one of chaos. A gaggle of shocked guests surrounded the body, their faces pale with disbelief, and he could see in their eyes the kaleidoscope of fear, guilt, and wretched disbelief. Mrs. Lefebvre, a stout woman with a penchant for gossip, clutched her pearls with both hands, while the insufferable Mr. Carstairs adjusted his spectacles, his brow furrowed with irritation more than sorrow. "What on earth happened?" he blustered, though even his voice trembled. "Do not move," Poirot commanded suddenly, and the assembly froze under the weight of his authority. "It is imperative that we do not disturb the scene of the crime." He stepped into the room, avoiding the scattering of forgotten pastries that now lay crumbled beside the figure of Miss Hargrove. Beneath her limp, open hand rested a delicate envelope, its edges adorned with intricate gold filigree that hinted at the tantalizing invitation she had sent to her guests just days prior, a harbinger of a gathering that now appeared shrouded in malevolence. "Which of you could have committed such an act?" he questioned, his dark eyes scanning each face, seeking the truth behind tightly held masks. Was it the long-standing rivalry with Lady Walton, or perhaps the debts that burdened Captain Fellows? A low murmur spread among them as one by one speculative eyes darted, each person reluctant to bear the weight of accusations. It was, however, the peculiar twitches of Miss Clara Thorne that caught Poirot's attention. The young woman, whose aspirations of becoming a renowned poet seemed all too heavily weighed upon her frail shoulders, trembled as she recoiled from the sight of the body. I didn't even like her," she stammered, indignation flaring momentarily in her eyes. "But she wouldn't hurt a fly." Yet it was the slight quiver in her voice and the pallor of her skin that suggested deeper trepidation. What secret did she harbor? Poirot turned his focus onto the envelope. He gently retrieved it from Miss Hargrove's grasp, noticing the faint cadence of perfume still lingering upon the parchment. "Mademoiselle, you describe your fondness for quaintness and romance," he said, as he held the invitation toward Clara, allowing her to catch a glimpse of her own name adorned in graceful script. "And yet, the scent carried by this paper suggests a conflict. The scent of jasmine. Yours, n'est-ce pas?" Clara's face flushed with a conflict of emotions. a mix of defensiveness and resignation. I sent her a note, yes, she stammered, inviting her to my reading of poetry, but I never meant to. Her voice trailed off, but Poirot noted the cracked edges of her bravado. Never meant to what, mademoiselle? To kill her? Or to declare your feelings for her in some fashion? I had nothing to do with this, Clara cried, her distress cloaked with sudden ferocity. You cannot pin this on me because I was angry. She took my words, my talent, and trampled them, like the others. A strange allure wafted through the air, heady and intoxicating, one that Poirot recognized all too well. The telltale whispers of jealousy threaded through their anxious breaths, yet this was merely a strand in the intricate tapestry of lies that now encircled the room. He sought a firmer grasp of the truth, and a clumsy footfall brushed against his own. Glancing up, Poirot saw that Mrs. Lefebvre was hovering uncomfortably near, clearly eavesdropping. "Ah, madame," he called her attention. "Tell me, you arrived early, did you not? You had ample time to bear witness to any quarrels. Perhaps someone caught your eye before the dark deed was committed." Mrs. Lefebvre's eyes flared, caught in the grip of self-preservation. I scarcely noticed. There was tea to prepare and... But you could not have missed the fracas near the window, a ruckus. The curtains were moving, were they not? And the sound of a thud as someone left the room hastily. Poirot's tone dropped, laced with urgency. "Could you note the time? It is crucial for your information, no?" Before she could respond, the doors burst open, admitting Inspector Barnaby, whose moustache bristled with authority. "What on earth happened here?" he demanded, only to be met with angered gasps and suspicious glances. Poirot fell silent, thoughts racing through his mind like fleeting shadows. How could murder happen in this locked room, filled with alibis? As he surveyed their rigid postures and faces twisted in fear or outrage, he sensed the weight of secrets tantalizing him just out of reach. Without warning, a loud crash erupted from the adjoining room. Poirot instinctively lunged towards it, just in time to see a figure vanish into the garden mist that enveloped the estate. A glint of something metallic caught Poirot's eye before the door slammed shut, something that told him their web of lies was only beginning to unravel. "Stop!" he yelled, but the shadow had melted into the evening haze, leaving behind only a lingering dread that thickened the air in the Red Lantern estate. Chapter 2. The Locked Room. Mystery. The ominous silence that followed the figure's vanishing act was shattered by a blood-curdling scream, a sound that pierced the air with the ferocity of a gunshot. Poirot turned on his heel, propelled by instinct and the mounting sense of urgency that coursed through his veins. The body of Miss Hargrove lay lifeless, but now the ghostly wail reverberated from the drawing-room, intertwining with the very fabric of dread that blanketed the estate. "Quickly, someone must check the other room," he commanded, and a ripple of inertia surged through the guests, their gazes falling upon one another with growing trepidation. Poirot felt the electric thread of tension, building like a taut string ready to snap, his mind racing to fathom the implications of the scream. With all eyes on him, he seized the moment, striding towards the door that had just moments ago been an inconspicuous threshold into a world of tea and light chatter, now mutated into the stage of a paradoxical theater of horrors. Once inside, the scent of jasmine clung stubbornly to the air, mingling with the coppery aroma of blood that still lingered like an unwelcome guest. There were no signs of struggle, no visible clues to betray the murderer lurking beneath the pristine veneer of the drawing room. Poirot gazed at the locked door from whence the wretched scream had erupted. It stood painfully still, the key securely turned within, a testament to the inexplicable artifice of the locked room conundrum. Yet a door locked from the inside does not a secret keep, he murmured under his breath, his discernment keenly sharpening with every passing moment. There must be a way. Mon Dieu, gasped Mrs. Lefebvre, who had ventured just behind him, her eyes darting around the magnificent room as if expecting shadows to shift or truths to jump from behind the drapes. Could it be that someone hid themselves away, to emerge only when the deed was done? Ah, but in a room filled with this many guests, that is quite the audacious plan, non? Poirot replied, half to himself, as he examined the dulcet arrangements of seating, the riotous floral patterns that adorned the wallpaper, now a cheerful contrast to the dark comedy of deeds committed within those walls. He approached the ornate mantelpiece, spotting the remnants of a shattered vase that had not gone unnoticed in the frenzy of the scene. "Did anyone hear a crash before the scream?" he asked, his voice steady yet laced with intensity. "I did," stumbled Captain Fellows, his voice trembling. "I had just stepped into the hall, but I didn't see anything. Nothing at all." He adjusted his collar nervously, unable to meet Poirot's searching gaze. As a bead of perspiration trickled from the captain's temple, Poirot's gaze flickered towards him, noting the guilt that stained his demeanor. "And how strange of you, Captain. You were not here to witness what transpired before the tragedy? That would seem coincidental." "It would," Fellows murmured, the words escaping as if he had been pinned beneath a weight of hope and terror. "But could anyone forget this scene? This—" he faltered, casting a nervous glance at Miss Clara, who remained transfixed, the paleness of her face a canvas for her swirling emotions. "Ah, Mademoiselle Thorne," Poirot said softly, redirecting his attention, "you spoke earlier of your disdain for Miss Hargrove, yet your presence here is stark. You did not retreat from being in her company. What holds your heart in such turmoil?" Clara's face flushed with a delicate blush of mortification, her voice barely a whisper as it emerged from her lips like the softest of wails. "She took everything from me, my dreams, my confidence. She paraded her successes while mine languished in obscurity." There was an undeniable fissure of pain that threaded through her words. "But I would never resort to murder. I would never. Yet in your heart there persists a shadow of desire, non? To remove that which stands in your way." He pressed gently, noting a tremor in her hands, twitching as if entrapped by a guilty spectre. She inhaled sharply, her breathing quick at the insinuation, and abruptly turned away, the turmoil of her psyche flaring into full view, a torrent of conflicting emotions. I only wanted to be understood." It was then that Poirot's attention was drawn once more to the details in the room. The gleam of something metallic glinted beneath the remnants of the vase on the hearth. His heart raced as he bent closer. It was a delicate locket, its chain twisted as if ripped from a hasty grasp. "And what is this?" "Mademoiselle Thorne," he said, not taking his gaze from the trinket. "Might this be yours?" Clara's eyes grew saucer-wide, panic escalating swiftly. "No, I don't know. It's not mine," she stammered, the conviction of her response wavering as her breath quickened. The locket bore intricate engravings that tantalized the mind with possible connections to the deceased. Mrs. Lefebvre stepped forward, peering at the object, her mouth forming an O of shock. "Why, that belonged to Miss Hargrove," she exclaimed, her voice a mixture of indignation and awe. "She wore it every day. Just look at the engraving. It bears her initials." "But how did it come to be here?" Poirot pondered aloud, his mind racing through the implications. A sign of a struggle? Or perhaps it was removed intentionally. He could feel the room, holding its breath, awaiting an epiphany that felt ever elusive. A startling creaking sound interrupted their tense contemplation as the locked door to the hallway shuddered under the pressure of an unseen force. Poirot's heart skipped, the disturbance drawing every eye. There was no mistaking it. Someone was trying to gain entry. "Stay here," he commanded the guests, instincts sharpening, ready for confrontation. As a heavy footfall loomed closer, echoing ominously through the quiet corridor, a handle twisted, then paused as if someone on the other side was hesitating, calculating their next move. Poirot's resolve intensified. The shadow of the murderer was drawing nearer, and he had no intention of allowing them to slip through the net of his meticulous investigation. Whatever secrets lay beyond that door, he would uncover them. The stakes had never been higher, and with the spectre of murder hanging thick in the air, Poirot braced himself for the inevitable confrontation that would determine the fate of all involved. Chapter 3. Shadows of the Past. A scream shattered the stillness like a blade slicing through flesh, morphing the sneering quiet into a frenzied uproar, just as Poirot wrenched open the door to the drawing room. The room erupted around him, engulfed in panic, as Clara Thorne, eyes wide and besotted with horror, pointed toward a shadow now flickering at the far corner like an insidious ghost. "There! You saw him! It was him!" The accusation hung in the air, glistening like a blade ready to strike, and all eyes turned cautiously to Captain Fellows, whose face took on an ashen hue. "Unfounded hysteria, mademoiselle," he protested, his voice high-pitched and trembling, tentatively attempting to regain control over the chaos. But Poirot absorbed the desperation in his tone, the crack in his bravado like a chink in iron armor. With daunting serenity, amidst the cacophony, Poirot stepped forward, every pulse of his little grey cells igniting as his mind sparked to life with insatiable questions. The chaos swirled. Clara, still quaking from her accusation, was thrown against the satin wallpaper like a startled bird, while Mrs. Lefebvre backed nervously against the mantelpiece, her fingers clutching the edge for support. Even Inspector Barnaby, who had just entered the morass with an air of authority, seemed reluctant to confront the tempestuous air that crackled with accusation. "You assert it was Captain Fellows?" Poirot inquired, leveling his gaze upon the captain, whose throat worked visibly as if trying to swallow a great stone. The room fell silent, a coffin-like stillness settling in, interrupted only by the distant thunder rumbling as dark clouds pressed in outside, veiling the estate in a suffocating gloom. "Tell us what you witnessed," Poirot urged, his voice silky yet edged with urgency. Fellows hesitated, his brow glistening with sweat, each bead reflecting the gravity of Poirot's scrutiny. I didn't see anything," Captain Fellows stammered. I simply heard Clara's scream, and from there—" "Ah, but there is never from there in an investigation, Captain. Details, I implore you. Every tremor of truth may serve as a cornerstone in this morbid edifice." Poirot's eyes moved over the guests, his mind cataloguing each nuance of expression, until, at last, his gaze flitted back to Clara. It was not only an accusation, But an assertion steeped in history, no? He pressed, unfurling the implications of her words as if they were petals of a profoundly meaningful flower blooming before him. But at that moment, the uncertainty was pierced by the thunderous sound of a door flinging open. From the shadows, a figure slipped into view. A tall man, wrapped in a dark coat, body taut and movements graceful, yet disquieting. "I know what happened," he proclaimed, his voice smooth yet urgent, slicing into the air of fear that had gripped the room. "Monsieur, who are you?" Poirot demanded, every channel of his analytical mind jolting to life. Every guest turned to face the newcomer, suspicions flaring like a spark thrown into tinder. "Gabriel Hargrove," the man replied, standing with a defiant posture. "I'm the brother of the deceased." Surprise rippled through the assembly as Mrs. Lefebvre gasped, retreating backward. "Gabriel, but you were never meant to be here," she exclaimed, her voice a mix of astonishment and unauthorized delight, yet tinged with an underlying tone of indignation. "Ah, but the past finds a way to creep into the present, non?" Gabriel countered, a hint of vindictiveness settling in his features, "and there have been shadows lingering, shadows of betrayal that reach far into our family's history." Poirot watched intently as the layers unraveled. Clara's expression shifted as Gabriel's words sunk in, elucidating unexplored depths within her own turmoil. "You?" she exclaimed, the shock lighting fires of accusation anew. "You wrote that letter. You think to drag this all back. You think to haunt us. Do not twist my words," Gabriel shot back, icy steel threading through his presence as his eyes darkened. "I merely wish to reveal the truth of a perilous family truth, an ancient rift that entwines us all." "What do you mean?" Poirot interjected, like a hawk poised to strike, pouncing on the prime opportunity. The storm outside roared angrily, as if to heighten the tension crackling in the room. Gabriel reached into the pocket of his coat, pulling out a crumpled letter. The edges yellowed with time, and unceremoniously tossed it onto the polished table, allowing the relic to flutter like a fallen leaf upon landing. "This letter, dated 2 decades ago, reveals the shattering turmoil my sister wrought upon our family, a rift that was never healed." The statement resonated in the heavy atmosphere, tension coiling tighter as the guests leaned in, eyes hungry for understanding. The letter seemed to pulsate with secrets, each participant's thirst for scandal pressuring them forward. Poirot's mind raced, conviction igniting as he attempted to piece together this unanticipated pivotal clue. "May I?" he inquired, holding up a hand, and deftly lifted the letter from the table, his meticulous fingers smoothing its worn parchment. "Monsieur Hargrove, if this indeed uncovers an old grievance, do not let us delay in reading its contents." Poirot continued, narrowing his eyes in anticipation as he scanned the missive, the shadows lurking in each corner of the room, seeming to lean in, closer, listening intently. A ghost of fear flickered through Clara's expression as the contents spooled out of Poirot's mouth like a long festering wound, sowing distrust amongst the guests. "This letter, it speaks of a betrayal, a contest over inheritance that shaped our fair Miss Hargrove into the person we now mourn. But what weight does it truly carry?" Poirot's brows knit as he scanned the faces for their reactions, parsing their apprehension like complex mathematics. Just then, a loud bang resonated from upstairs, as if a door had swung wide open to invite unbidden chaos into their close-knit circle of intrigue. The tension thickened palpably. Poirot's bearings sharpened, breath hitching, as he sensed the winds of fate shifting. "Stay here," he ordered before rushing toward the staircase to confront the unseen commotion, the echoes of hidden truths driving him onward, hardening the resolve of his pursuit. The doors behind him swung shut, a decisive finality echoing ominously through the air, leaving the remaining guests wrapped in their whispered suspicions and fractured relationships. Poirot pressed forward, desperate to unravel the enigma that twined tighter around each one of them. He could feel it. The past was clawing back, intent upon bringing down the very fabric of their future. And then, in the chaos, a single, fleeting thought lurked at the forefront of his mind. What if the shadows of the past were far more dangerous than he could have ever anticipated? Chapter 4. The Widow and the Missing Will. The sound of shattering glass was followed by a chilling silence, as if the air itself had stolen the breath from the room. Poirot's heart raced, his instincts ignited by the source of the disturbance he had just witnessed. Clara Thorne stood frozen, eyes wide, as she dared to glance at the array of shards scattered ominously around the base of the broken portrait that had once hung proudly on the wall. A portrait of the deceased Miss Hargrove, her serene face now distorted by the chaos. "It's there! The truth lies there!" Clara exclaimed, her voice trembling as she indicated the ruin that had fallen. "Alas, it appears we are not simply facing mysteries of the past, but the unraveling threads of the present, non?" Poirot commented, trying to steady the gathering storm of emotions. He crouched beside the fragments, searching for any clues amidst the wreckage, but his thoughts were already aflame with suspicion. The shattering had not merely disrupted their idle chatter. It had served as a prelude to deeper turmoil lurking beneath the surface. "Let us not lose ourselves in outer chaos," Captain Fellows interjected, a note of commanding urgency cracking through his voice. "We must gain control. Start by searching for—" "Control?" Poirot interjected, rising with a rebuke in his gaze. "Have we ever truly possessed it, Captain?" "Control, it slips through our fingers as easily as this glass," he gestured to the shards, "when the shadows of deceit cast their long pall." His mind turned, a tumult of questions converging as he recalled Gabriel Hargrove's ominous hints of betrayal. Something larger was at play. It gnawed at him, insistent in its demand for illumination. With a swift glance at Mrs. Lefebvre, who clutched her silver locket with nervous fingers, Poirot beckoned Clara to join him. "If you please, mademoiselle, describe to me the content of your late friend's last days. Were there changes to her affairs, perhaps?" The dagger of curiosity had pierced through Clara's anxious facade, cutting the tension that thickened between them. I don't know what you mean," she stammered, her distress mingling with growing defiance. Miss Hargrove was the epitome of generosity. Her heart was perhaps too generous, Poirot observed, his voice unfurling like delicate silk, wrapping around her hesitation, tightening subtly. "The term benevolence can hide many things, yes? An inheritance that entangles itself into the very fabric of familial love can reveal more than one intends." Clara shifted, her eyes darting away as if beckoning memories she sought to suppress. She had mentioned changes, things about her will. Her voice fell to a whisper, laden with dread. "Change breeds discontent and unearthed desire," Poirot murmured, piecing together the fragmented puzzle. A missing will, a fortune coveted, and shadows spiraling with ulterior motives. And who could have reason to gain from this change, mademoiselle? Before Clara could respond, Mrs. Lefebvre stepped forward, a hand pressed firmly against her heart. "Miss Hargrove had told me she planned to give her entire estate to a cause, a hospital for sick children. It infuriated Gabriel, her brother, who believed he was entitled to everything. The revelation rocked Poirot, setting off a chain reaction of implications. He could already feel the gears of his mind shifting into a more illuminated perspective. "And yet it is not Gabriel we must concern ourselves with only," he inquired. "What about you, Madame Lefebvre? What ties do you possess to these changes? Could there lie secrets underlying your affections for our departed friend?" Sweat beaded on the woman's brow, a crackle of anxiety evident beneath her composed surface. "I cared for her. She relied on me. I would never—" "But your motives may run deeper," Poirot interjected smoothly, piercing through the thicket of her protestations. The tension coiled around them, stifling yet electric, the very room seeming to lean in, eager for confirmation. "I am not the enemy here. That letter, it must hold the true motive for all this." Her gaze flickered between Poirot and Clara, pitting suspicion against loyalty with fierce abandon. Desperation igniting within him, Poirot stepped toward the adjacent study where the late Miss Hargrove had kept her archives, driven by an undeniable compulsion to expose the tangled truth. "We must search for the original will. Document once buried may yet hold the key to unlocking these shadows." In the study, thick and hazy with dust and secrets, Poirot sifted through the papers cluttering Miss Hargrove's desk, each document a potential precursor to what had transpired. As the wind howled outside, he felt the delicate fabric of the room become charged with energy, every moment pregnant with possibility. With each creak of the floorboards, every rattle of the window panes, the scent of hidden motives mingled with the pungent aroma of desperation. "Here, look." Clara's voice shot through the austere quiet, breathless with urgency, as she lifted a ledger filled with detailed accounts and names. "These records, they do not seem right." Poirot hurried to her side, feeling the electric hum of discovery pulse through the air. "Ah, mais oui, let us see." They turned the brittle pages together, their eyes scanning the meticulous entries, revealing a complex web of relationships and transactions. Yet, intriguing as they were, one entry leapt to the forefront, a bold notation of a recent meeting regarding a change to the estate. But just as Poirot began to piece the threads of deception together, a knock reverberated through the room, drawing their attention. It was urgent, harsh, echoing with a sense of impending dread. "Who's there?" Poirot called, though his heart thudded in his chest, a primal instinct whispering that they weren't alone in this search. The door swung wide open, revealing Inspector Barnaby's ashen face, his eyes round with alarm. "There's been another incident upstairs, Poirot. We need you immediately." Without hesitation, Poirot followed the inspector, the heavy cloud of foreboding trailing behind like a spectre. Secrets were fraying, and lives hung in the balance, each revelation more precarious than the last. As he reached the staircase, the tension wound tighter, pooling in the pit of his stomach. The connection between Clara, Mrs. Lefebvre, and the late Miss Hargrove surged into view like a foreboding storm, swirling dangerously close. Poirot's pulse quickened, urgency filled the air, igniting his senses. Just as he was about to ascend, a blood-curdling scream pierced through the atmosphere, descending into the core of his very being, shattering the boundary of the known. "No!" cried a voice from further up the stairs, the plea cracking like a whip against the heavy silence, igniting Poirot's resolve. In that moment, he understood that the shadows weren't merely remnants of the past. They were living, breathing threats, poised to consume everything in their path. And as he hurled himself forward toward the horror that awaited, it was clear. The real mystery had only just begun to reveal its monstrous form. Chapter 5. The Disappearing Alibi. A crash echoed through the dimly lit corridor, a cacophony that shattered the heavy silence like glass shattering upon a stone floor. Poirot, breathless and alert, sprinted towards the sound, his heart pounding in rhythm with the fading echoes of chaos. He reached the top of the staircase just as a frantic Clara Thorne appeared, her pallid face illuminated by the flickering gaslight, eyes wide with terror. "He's gone. He's disappeared," she gasped, her stammer punctured by desperation. The very fabric of the evening had warped, twisting into an abominable nightmare. "Who has vanished, mademoiselle?" Poirot's voice was steely, though tinged with the urgency of the moment. The question hit the air with the weight of lead. Every word was imbued with the gravity of myriad truths awaiting revelation. Clara clenched her fists, trembling as she pointed down the hall. Gregory Montgomery. He was with Miss Hargrove moments before her death. They were alone together. Now he's... She seemed on the verge of collapsing, panic clinging to her like a shroud. Montgomery, the enigmatic house guest, Poirot mused, his mind racing. "And you say he was the last person with Miss Hargrove?" "Indeed," Clara nodded, a tremor running through her voice. "Right before everything happened. He must know something." The tension thickened, wrapping around them like an unyielding fog. Poirot's sharp gaze swept the hall, searching for signs of disturbance, a trail leading to the enigmatic man who had become the key to the mystery. "Where did you last see him?" Clara pointed shakily towards the end of the corridor, her voice barely above a whisper. "In the drawing room. I was standing just outside. There was a heated discussion. Then the scream came," she explained, her thoughts darting like frightened birds. "I ran in, and he was gone." "Non, non, mademoiselle. It cannot be. A man does not simply vanish into thin air," Poirot replied, each word a careful calculation. "Yet, we must find him. Lead me to this drawing room immediately." They hurried down the hallway, the chandeliers overhead casting long, wavering shadows upon the walls, as if they too were witnesses to the crime unfolding. The drawing room loomed ahead, an air of foreboding surrounding it. Poirot stepped inside, his senses tingling. The room was untouched, a tableau of half-lit comforts and secrets lurking just beyond the periphery. "Look." Clara pointed to a partially open window, the curtains fluttering as the wind howled outside, almost in concert with her breathlessness. He could have escaped. Poirot approached the window, examining the latch as he traced the cool, polished wood with meticulous care. Or someone could have helped him, non? One must consider all possibilities. Just then, Captain Fellows's voice cut through the chill, his demeanor a curious mix of authority and weariness. "Have you seen Gregory? He was in the library just before everything went sideways." "He cannot be found," Poirot said, using a measured tone to convey the mounting evidence of uncertainty. "But we must determine why he has vanished. What were Mr. Montgomery's reasons for being in the library?" "I might know," Captain Fellows replied, frowning in thought. He and Miss Hargrove had disagreements about the estate, disagreements that could easily lead one to consider eliminating obstacles. "A fitting confession of motives, Captain," Poirot noted, his eyes narrowing with intensity. "And does anyone else share this sentiment? Perhaps Mrs. Lefebvre. What can she say about Mr. Montgomery's last moments?" The good lady was quite distressed. "Nobody acts with clarity in the thick of despair," the captain replied, a hint of doubt shading his tone. "But yes, The rumor of an affair between Miss Hargrove and Mr. Montgomery did float about, unsettling both Gabriel. All the more reason to unravel this mystery then, Poirot interrupted before the captain could finish. Clara, take me to the library. As they retraced their steps back into the darkened apparition of the hallway, Poirot felt a weight gnashing at the corners of his mind. Something sinister lurked here, hidden within the dozen pairs of eyes that had witnessed this transmutation of fate, but whose loyalty lay broken beyond repair. They arrived in the library, its sumptuous atmosphere cast in long shadows by the dimming light. Everything lay arranged with an opulence that now seemed mockingly serene, a deceit veiled in plush velvet and gilded accents. Poirot swept his gaze across the room, searching for a breadcrumb, a whisper in the forgotten corners. "Search," he commanded, and Clara immediately moved toward the rows of bookshelves, running her fingers across the dusty spines. Poirot's instincts prickled anew as he approached a heavy desk, the burden of secrets growing ever heavier. But the majesty of the organ in the corner veered his attention. Perhaps it held answers, hidden in its dusty keys. Just then, one sound broke the silence, a sharp intake of breath. Captain Fellows had found something nestled deep within the folds of a small cushion on a nearby chair. Trembling, he revealed a crumpled piece of paper, the ink still fresh. "What is this?" he murmured, revealing it for all to see. As Poirot leaned in, his heart began to race, adrenaline sizzling through his veins. The message was cryptic, written in hasty, jagged strokes. "If I am seen, I will be lost. Meet at midnight, the garden gate. Trust no one." His eyes narrowed, every nerve ending alert. "Ah, we may have struck the very nerve of this sordid affair," Poirot mused, his mind racing. This was no casual note. It suggests peril. Someone fears for their life. But whom does it belong to? "What do we do now?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. The atmosphere crackled with tension, the air thick with uncertainty, mirroring the chaos of their unraveling situation. "We must act quickly. We must find Mr. Montgomery before the dark closes around him. The garden gate may be our only lead," Poirot declared, urgency coursing through him. Just then, a chilling sound resonated, a sudden clatter from the corridor, footsteps that pounded against the floor like thunder rolling ominously above. Poirot's heart dropped. His instincts screamed at him that danger was upon them, the air shifting palpably. "Stay close," he snapped, casting a wary glance over his shoulder. But as he turned back to Clara, another jarring realization hit him. The drawing-room door creaked open, revealing the dark silhouette of a figure blocked in the doorway, eyes glinting in the half-light. With a thundering heartbeat, he knew one thing for certain. Someone was watching them, perhaps even plotting their demise. And thus, as shadows converged, Poirot felt the firm grip of treachery tightening around them, the very foundation of trust crumbling beneath their feet. The game of cat and mouse had begun in earnest, and time was no longer on their side. Chapter 6. A Mirror to the Truth. The shattering of glass rent the air, a sharp, brutal sound that pierced through the murk of fear and uncertainty. Poirot spun around just as a figure stumbled into sight, blood trickling from a gash on their forehead, the iridescent shards of a cracked mirror cascading from the floor like jagged stars fallen from the night. Clara Thorne's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp as horror crept into her eyes, while Poirot felt a familiar spark of adrenaline ignite within him. "Tell me, mademoiselle, is this Gregory?" he demanded, his voice a steel-threaded whip cutting through the charged atmosphere. Yet inside, doubt twisted like a knife. "No, it's Captain Fellows," Clara replied, her gaze shifting from the prone figure to the fractured mirror that had once reflected the sumptuous opulence of the estate. The captain lay on the floor, breathless and pale, his expression a tumult of pain and confusion. Poirot knelt swiftly by his side, the crimson pooling beneath the captain's forehead, shadowing the flickering gaslight around them, staining it deeper. "What has happened?" he pressed, eyes scanning the edges of the room for signs of further treachery. With a labored breath, the captain squared his jaw, the lines of concern etching deeper into his brow. "I was searching for Montgomery. I thought I heard voices. Then a shadow surged past," he stammered, his voice faltering. Poirot's instincts flared, urging him to act even as the pieces of this sinister puzzle began to coalesce before him. Was it not certain that Mr. Montgomery last occupied this domain? He probed, his gaze unwavering, as he studied the captain's expression for any hints of conceit or deception. Fellows's breathing hitched. It was a moment too long. "You seem troubled, mon ami. What you have discovered?" In a brittle whisper, Captain Fellows replied, "I saw him in the mirror, his eyes cold, like a serpent, waiting to strike. I reached out, but he fled." His eyes drifted towards the shattered remains, a reflection of the chaos surrounding them. "You mean to say he was deliberately hiding?" "It is a game, then," Poirot interjected, a sense of mounting urgency blanketing his thoughts. "We must search for him. He could very well be your attacker." He gestured emphatically towards Clara, who trembled at the implications. "Yes, I believe he took that note," Clara murmured, her words tumbling forth like pebbles on a riverbank. "It felt like a warning, and now he knows we are on to him. He may strike again." "Non, we are not the hunted, but the hunters. We pursue truth," Poirot declared firmly, rising to his feet and letting his little grey cells dance through the night's events like fireflies in the dark. "Captain, where might we seek Montgomery? Where does he hide?" But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of uncertainty settle heavily on his shoulders. "Perhaps," Clark Fellows started, but a sudden loud crash interrupted, echoing from further down the corridor. The air shifted, thickening with a tangible dread. "No, he can't still be here," he croaked, panic flickering in his eyes. With resolve, Poirot turned, his footsteps brisk, as he made for the doorway. "Clara, stay beside the captain. If he returns, you must summon me." His heart raced as he propelled himself down the dimly lit corridor, each shadow a potential threat lurking just out of sight. The narrow walls seemed to close around him, each flickering gaslight, casting a flickering glow that danced in his mind like the very chaos he sought to unravel. As he approached the entrance to the drawing room, a figure darted past, silhouetted momentarily in the dim light. Gregory Montgomery. His retreat was swift, a blur of movement that sent Poirot's heart to his throat. "Montgomery," Poirot shouted, desperation clawing at his voice. "Do not flee." The echo of his own challenge reverberated ominously, but the figure vanished around the corner. With a surge of determination, Poirot surged forward, pursuing the spectre through the suffocating silence. He reached the threshold of the drawing room, hurling open the door, only to find it deserted, save for the haunting remains of shattered glass scattered across the floor, reflecting innumerable fractured images of what had once been. A presence lurked just out of his sight, hidden within the folds of dimness and shadow that enveloped the room. "Come forth, Mr. Montgomery," Poirot commanded, his voice resonating with authority, yet beneath it lay a quiver of urgency. "Your games will lead to despair." But an unnerving quiet responded in kind, thickening the air, suffocating thoughts skirting the edges of his mind. Perhaps it was a ruse, Poirot considered aloud, frowning. But why would he leave? Unless... His eyes flickered to the shattered mirror, glimmering in the dimness, a treacherous reflection of the truth he sought. What cruel irony! The truth hides in plain sight, yet remains, obscured. Just then, a chill swept through him as footsteps echoed from the hallway beyond, sudden and swift, accompanied by maniacal laughter. Poirot turned sharply and felt the skin on his arms prickle at the sound. "Who goes there?" he shouted, a sudden surge of foreboding coursing through him as the footsteps neared, quickening, and the laughter twisted into an eerie wail, echoing through the confines of the home. He maneuvered instinctively towards the source, heart bounding in sync with the rattling dread infecting the very walls around him. What awaited him at the end of the corridor he could not predict, but as the unseen spectre drew near, Poirot knew one immutable truth. The game was far from over, and danger had stitched itself intricately into the fabric of the night. As he rounded the corner, the echo of the laugh morphed into a sinister whisper, causing his breath to hitch painfully in his throat. "You cannot escape the darkness, for the truth is a reflection, and it is coming for you, Poirot." In that moment, the hallway seemed to warp, shadows stretching towards him like claws reaching out to ensnare. He made to retreat, but the sound of shattering glass erupted again, more than a mere echo, but a full-scale wake of destruction. And when the panic-stricken scream erupted from Captain Fellows behind him, echoing with unrestrained terror, Poirot's heart dropped and resolve coalesced into a singular, pulsating urgency. This was a warning, the reflection of the truth was breaking apart, and he stood at the center. As he prepared to fight against the encroaching darkness, he understood that the end of this chase would reveal not just the murderer, but the very depths of human malevolence. And that realization glistened like blood on the cracked mirror. Chapter 7, The Warning from the Grave. A scream cut through the darkness, sharp and visceral, igniting a fire of terror in Poirot's heart as he spun on his heel, eyes darting frantically for its source. The drawing-room door had slammed shut behind him, hours or perhaps seconds feeling like an eternity as he grasped for the reality of the moment. "Fellows!" The captain's voice echoed with maddening confusion, reverberating against the dim walls, and Poirot's intuition flared with the knowledge that something sinister lurked beyond its fragile veneer. With a swift motion, he wrenched open the door, the splintering wood protesting against the unrelenting pressure of urgency. A shadowy figure flickered in his peripheral vision, its movements swift and furtive, but it vanished before Poirot could seize it. The room lay vacant, save for the shards of the shattered mirror that lay glistening on the floor. A cruel reflection of what had just transpired, the air thick with dread. "Captain!" Poirot called once more, desperation coloring his tone. He stumbled past the shreds of glass, its sharp angles forming a cruel mosaic of unfulfilled promises and shattered lives. Suddenly, behind a nearby armchair, the captain emerged, his eyes wide and wild with fear, blood still trickling from his brow. Poirot rushed to his side, his instincts whirling like the tempest outside that had punctuated the night with its murmured threats. "Montgomery, he slipped through my fingers." Fellows gasped, every breath sounding labored as he glanced towards the door. I thought I saw him. The swiftness of his movement, it was more spectral than real. Poirot felt the urgency clutch at him as he realized that emotions wrapped tightly around Captain Fellows could either fortify their resolve or blind them to the undeniable peril looming in their midst. "Focus, mon ami. What did you truly see?" Poirot pressed, his tone intense, yet calm. Reading the panic veiling the captain's clarity, Fellows swallowed hard, words trembling just beneath the surface as he tried to compose himself. It was like he was being consumed by darkness, an insatiable shadow rushing past my periphery, leaving me in anguish. As the words tumbled forth, the flickering gaslights wavered, casting shifting shadows across the room that stirred the roots of suspicion in Poirot's mind. He moved towards the seat where the captain had crouched, scanning the vicinity for any clue that may have escaped his notice. There, on the chair's arm, lay something half-concealed beneath a faded throw. Poirot's heartbeat quickened. He hoisted it into the light. An old journal, bound in worn leather, its pages frayed, but surprisingly intact. "Do you recognize this?" he inquired, instinctively feeling there was an undisclosed history tied to the journal that could yield vital truths. Fellows's breath hitched. A flicker of recognition flared in his eyes. Yes, it belonged to Mrs. Montgomery, the widow. She kept a record of her husband's final days, his increasing paranoia. With delicate fingers, he opened it, revealing inked passages charged with a frantic energy that seemed to seep off the page like oil. "To possess doubts is not to possess knowledge," Poirot murmured, scrutinizing the hurried scrawl. "Ah, here, it speaks of a betrayal unmasked, an entity cloaked in shadows. Who was it that haunted him?" His eyes widened as he read further, the weight of each word sinking into his consciousness. "Trusting no one, not even my own blood." The captain's horror deepened as the gravity of the revelation began to sink in. He believed someone was out to kill him, someone within their circle. Fellows trembled slightly, torn between the revelations of the words and the reality of his precarious existence. Poirot felt alive with clarity, yet, beneath that clarity, lingered the unsolved knots of dread that twisted through the tale as it unraveled. Could it be possible the very trust of a wife carries an unspoken vengeance? He wondered aloud. Does she know more than she says? But it was at that moment the journal slipped from his fingers, landing with a dull thud upon the floor, its pages flexing as though to shield their revelations. A sudden draft chilled the air, drawing both men's attention to the dimmed doorway. The sound of approaching footsteps reverberated once more, heavier this time, punctuating the silence with a foreboding presence. "Poirot, we must hide," Fellows urged, panic rising as shadows seemed to converge ominously outside the door. "It cannot be him again." "Non," Poirot replied, his voice low and commanding. "We will confront what approaches. We shall not cower in the dark." He steeled himself. As the footsteps halted just outside, an elongated pause, filled with stillness, laden with promise and threat, as heavy as the storm raging beyond the estate walls. Then, with deliberate slowness, the door creaked open, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow, the very spectre they had been trying to evade. Poirot's senses sharpened to a singular point. Each heartbeat drummed in rhythm to the tension consuming the night. "You thought you could uncover the truth, Poirot," the figure rasped, voice echoing with an insidious timbre. "But some truths are buried deeper than any grave." With that, The figure lunged forward, a glimmering object flashing dangerously in their outstretched hand, its intent burning as bright as lightning in the night. Poirot reacted instinctively, his heart racing amidst the thunder of dread that loomed palpably in the air. A reckoning was upon them, ready to strike. The room exploded into chaos. "Fellows, move!" Poirot shouted, just as everything around him shattered, both his resolve and his understanding of the dark currents of betrayal that bound this night together in a fierce vice of danger. The warning had come from the grave, and now the past threatened to rise violently against them. Chapter 8: Secrets Behind Closed Doors. A piercing scream echoed through the dim corridors of Montgomery Manor, chilling Poirot to the bone as he braced against the chaos swirling in the air. From the threshold of the drawing-room, he could see Captain Fellows crumpling to the floor, blood trickling down his temple, an unforgiving scarlet against the pale expanse of his skin. Before Poirot could reach him, a frantic rustle echoed in the disarray, a shadow flitting past the candles, their flames dancing with the gusts of unseen fear. "What madness is this?" Poirot rasped, heart racing as he surged toward the captain, whose terror-streaked eyes relayed an urgent message of dread that spoke louder than words. "Montgomery," Fellows cried, his voice raw and quivering. "He's gone mad. The darkness." But his fervent words turned to a choked sob as he struck the floor, hands grasping for reality. Poirot's mind raced. He could not allow panic to trap him. "Stay with me," he ordered, knelt beside Fellows, his smooth voice a contrast to the tempest swirling around them. "Regain your composure," he urged, infusing the air with necessity. "Tell me what you saw." Fellows' breath came shallow, eyes darting to the shadows, fear guiling clarity. He spoke to me. There's a room hidden." The captain struggled against consciousness, every syllable a monumental effort. "I saw it open. A narrow door behind the library. A ghostly shape. He slipped inside. I swear to you." Without hesitation, Poirot straightened, tapping into the urgency clutching at his insides. "We shall investigate this anomaly, but we must not alert the spectre that lurks." Together, they surged off, the weight of revelation behind them, footsteps echoing dully against darkened wood, shadows stretching and twining like fingers grasping for revelation. As they entered the library, the scent of dust and neglect slipped into Poirot's nostrils, stirring a deep unease that settled in his stomach. The gaslights flickered, casting phantoms that danced beyond the walls, and he peered at every shadow, every tome stuffed haphazardly into the shelves, hungry for clues. "Which shelf did you see it by?" he asked, glancing at Fellows. "That one." Fellows pointed a trembling hand to a gnarled wooden bookshelf, its carvings worn and fading, yet hiding within harbored secrets. A burst of determination gripped Poirot. He stepped forward, examining the wood grain and the delicate play of shadows. With sturdy hands, he pulled at the shelves until one unexpectedly shifted, revealing a narrow door concealed within the wall, the very secret that hung like a spectre in the air. "Ah, sacrilege!" he exclaimed, eyes glinting with renewed vigor. For within the confines of this hidden space lay an untouched history that begged to be unfurled. He steeled himself, forcing the door open through a cathartic creaking that brought hallowed whispers of long-held secrets crashing like thunder in his ears. The door swung wide. He entered, Fellows hovering uncertainly behind him, eyes wide with the thrill of violation and fear tethered to the unknown. Beyond, the air grew colder, stale with decades of silence. The flickering gaslight revealed a small chamber cluttered with remnants that time had chosen to forget. Old newspapers, dust-covered photographs, and brittle letters filled every corner, all converging upon a single image resting on a small table. A photograph of a woman, her smile, hauntingly familiar. Poirot squinted, reaching out to examine it more closely. Yes, it is Mrs. Montgomery. He whipped back to Fellows, a realization jolting through him. The widow of the late Gregory Montgomery. We must uncover her past. Look, Fellows pointed, as another faded letter slipped from the edge. He grasped it before it could float away, his brow furrowed as he examined the fragile script. It speaks of threats, a warning of death, referring to someone called the Shadow. The Shadow, Poirot murmured, the name echoing in his mind, resonating with the secrets they trod upon. This is a foreshadowing of events. That darkness runs deeper than expected. But as he leaned closer, strains of laughter broke the silence, sprouting from outside the hidden room, twisting into a maelstrom of laughter cut with sinister tones. Poirot's heart raced anew. This was not merely a treasure trove of the past, but a nest of inquiries too dangerous to leave unchecked. Fellows, he pressed, cutting through the atmosphere, now palpably electric, with the possibility of revelation. Listen carefully. We must search among these relics for any living threads that connect our past to the present, he urged, already retracing his steps to the desk. Someone has hidden themselves within this darkness, and we are dangerously close to unraveling their ruse. Before they could delve deeper, footsteps thundered just outside the chamber, casual yet laden with intent, the unmistakable menace of an intruder approaching. Fellows paled, fear rooting him in place. Fellows, quick, we must not be seen, Poirot hissed, yet they were caught within a moment of climatic tension, the reality of their situation drawing taut like a whip seeking release. The door began to creak under the pressure of an intruder, malice lying in wait somewhere in its shadows. We are exposed. As the hinges moaned, the breath caught in Poirot's throat. The very air thickened with the weight of revelation on the brink. We can't be discovered. He turned toward Fellows with a fierce determination, brows knit in concentration. Take that letter. But the door burst open, ruthless and unyielding, illuminating a face masked in shadows, the spectre of their haunting, hands gripping a gleaming knife poised with murderous intent. You were meddling where you shouldn't, Poirot, the figure hissed, the words sliding like venom through the darkened space. Non, Poirot interjected, realizing, within that split second, the reality of their peril. The balance of their lives tipped precariously as the spectre lunged forward, treachery bursting forth like a tide struggling to drown them both. The past screamed against the panic coursing through him, and in that moment, black chaos threatened to consume his very existence. Chapter 9. The trap is set. A sudden crash resonated through the vast, echoing halls of Montgomery Manor as the door splintered under the weight of a desperate body, and Poirot nearly lost his balance as he whirled to face the sudden chaos. Captain Fellows, adrenaline-fueled, had flung himself against the door with all the force of a man possessed. "Look out!" Fellows barked, eyes wide, the horror of recognition etched deeply in his features. But the warning was too late. The spectre, masked in shadow and rage, was upon them. A knife, gleaming ominously in the flickering candlelight, ready to draw blood. With reflexes honed through countless confrontations, Poirot snatched a nearby candlestick, brandishing it like a shield, while his mind raced fiercely through strands of suspicion curling in the air. "Stay behind me, fellows," he roared, every muscle coiled as though preparing to spring. But even amidst the flurry of his thoughts, clarity won over, piercing through the storm of chaos. This was not merely about survival, it was about strategy amidst danger. For they were not only victims here, they were players on a clandestine board, and if he were to win, he must deftly manipulate the pieces. "Whoever you are," he called, steadying his voice against the tempest of fear threatening to engulf him. "We cannot allow you to continue this charade. Reveal yourself, and let us not descend into sacred darkness." The hidden figure stilled momentarily, their glinted blade poised dangerously in the dim light, and behind the mask, Poirot sensed the thundering heart of the true culprit coursing in time with his own pulse. A silence fell, pregnant with tension. "You're clever, Poirot," the masked figure intoned, and there was an unmistakable echo of menace in the voice, as though it belonged to someone they knew all too well. "But the truth is more elusive than you think. You won't live to uncover it." Something clicked within Poirot's mind. This wasn't blind vengeance, but a calculated trap to drive a wedge deeper into the festering wound of their lives, fear wrapped thickly around betrayal. "Ah, but the shadows have a way of revealing their own," he countered, summoning every ounce of composure as he faced the spectre with unyielding resolve. If shadows come to dance, they must first reveal their form. Just as he was about to make a tactical advance, a frantic shout escalated from somewhere outside the doorway. "What is happening in there? Release my husband!" The sharp voice, slicing through the atmosphere, belonged to Mrs. Montgomery, her presence igniting a spark of chaos that could tip the scales of revelation. "There is no need for you to fear, my lady," Poirot called out, attempting to rally the cacophony of emotions swirling around him. "Have faith. We are confronting the darkness head on." He surmised that by revealing their precarious status to Mrs. Montgomery, the tension would heighten into a perfect storm, one that might lure the perpetrator into revealing their true nature. The masked figure hesitated, annoyance crackling like electricity. "You think you can manipulate your way through this, Poirot? You are mistaken." Yet it was this very moment of faltering that thrust Poirot forward. He stepped within striking distance, his heart racing not from fear, but from the thrill of the game unfolding. "It is not manipulation, merely an exercise of reason," he proclaimed, eyes sharp with the concept taking shape within his mind. "Perhaps it is you who now finds yourself in a trap of your own making." Before his words fully settled in the air, Poirot experienced a dizzying rush of urgency. He opened the tea cabinet against the far wall, a feeble attempt to distract the assailant while offering fellow allies a much-needed lifeline. Bursting open the cabinet doors, Poirot revealed the teapot, along with a hidden drawer nearby. "Are you not curious about what's hidden in the crumbs of these forgotten tidbits?" The figure hesitated again, drawn to the prospect of uncovering the unknown. "What are you doing?" Even as the masked threat drew closer, a living embodiment of every shadow lying in wait, Poirot maintained composure, baiting the intangible forces lurking beyond sight. Inside lies not just tea, but history and secrets you deem insignificant. Then, grabbing the edge of a table, Poirot upended it, throwing the contents against the floor with a crash that sent teacups skittering and groaning across the polished wood, an orchestrated ruse to create chaos. But within that chaos, he introduced an opening to draw out the true perpetrator. Such an eager hand. "Surely you would like to sift through the mess I've made, would you not?" Poirot's eyes flicked to Fellows, whose pulse beat with both fear and awe. "Remember that which we have uncovered, Captain. Trust is a shadow cast on betrayal. Those who linger too long within it are bound to reveal themselves." The figure charged forward, blade poised, yet within their mind undoubtedly lay the question: how had Poirot threaded the line between danger and chance, drawing them into the unraveling narrative? In their fury, they sought to act, but the next seconds crashed down upon them with gale-strength fury, family ties converging, hidden alliances threatened, and lives teetering on the precipice of grim fate. Suddenly, a resounding bang shattered the tension in the room, a noise like thunder, almost lost amongst multiple demands, tension-building cries and dark laughter culminating within the murky shadows. And as the door burst open once again, this time revealing Mrs. Montgomery's determined visage, the figure recoiled, revealing a familiar face, a face Poirot had thought hidden away for good. "Where is he?" she cried, eyes narrowing, embers of fury boiling within them. "What have you done to him?" With the electric tension crackling, Poirot's heart raced. This was the revelation he had dared to lure into the light. The relationship dynamics shifting, like a landscape, betrayal poised to plunge into clarity. He grasped at the direction this dark tide was turning. But just as words loomed on his lips, a blinding flash erupted around them, and chaos returned in a whirlwind so vibrant it threatened to drown him. A scream erupted that echoed louder than thunder, joining the symphony of chaos in the manner as seeing a shaft of candlelight flared into darkness, dimmed, and then went out. The room plunged into blackness, a world gone askew, leaving no clear escape from the dangers coiling around each of them. The flickering die-cast, and their fates intertwined, teetering on the edge of savage revelation. Who would illuminate the truth? Who was the fanged spectre that lay in wait beneath the guise they all wore? In that moment, with stakes spiraled into uncertainty, Poirot felt the walls of devotion caving in, and all hell was about to break loose. Chapter 10. The Accusation. No one saw coming. A piercing scream cleaved through the suffocating darkness, ripping apart the tension like a blade through silk, sending shockwaves through the suffocating air of the hidden chamber. Poirot's breath caught in his throat as he instinctively moved towards the sound, heart racing with the primal urgency of the moment. A life dangled precariously on the edge of chaos. "We must find that light," he shouted, eyes flicking about to gather details unseen in the pitch-black void. The flickering shadows clawed at his resolve, yet he could feel the presence of the masked figure shifting in the obscurity, a phantom lurking, poised to strike. Fellows, trembling at his side, involuntarily stepped closer, driven by instinct, as he muttered a fervent prayer. "Stay close to me," Poirot warned, straining against the marrow-deep anxiety that pervaded the room. The air thickened with charged anticipation, every heartbeat amplifying the fear creeping through them like a dense fog. "No one is to act in haste," he cautioned, though his voice trembled with edginess. He could almost taste the metallic tang of fear mingling with the dread, a concoction too familiar, yet terribly violent. Senses ignited, Poirot concentrated, locking away any trace of panic to sharpen his wits. Each breath became a whisper of clarity amidst disarray, urging him to weave together disjointed scenarios like a tapestry fraught with hidden truths. "Who is it? Show yourself." Mrs. Montgomery's voice rang out. Defiance mingled with desperation, her previous calm now ripped apart at the seams as she stumbled forward through the unseen terrain. "How dare you threaten my family, you coward!" In that moment, the world spun on the axis of fear and revelation, drawing each individual moment into a tapestry of hidden connections, fragile threads surrounding them, yet invisible in the darkness. "Your bravado will not save you," came a chilling voice from the depths. Crystal, clear despite the chaos, snaking its way through them with the certainty of an omen. The figure advanced, the knife glinting malevolently. It refracted light, not as a weapon, but as a herald of the malice that ebbed at the edges of their trust. Poirot could feel the gravity of each accusation, every suspicion held like a taut string, ready to snap. He breathed deeply, searching for the anchor within the storm. Then, with resolute calm, Poirot allowed himself a moment of analysis, eyes flicking to Mrs. Montgomery. Such courage was often a mask. "Madame," he intoned softly, the menace of her greater fears clinging to her like an unwanted mantle. "What do you truly believe lies behind that mask?" Her gaze flickered, betrayal woven into the very fabric of her being, while the atmosphere sagged beneath the burden of her silence. "Do not deflect," she spat back, eyes narrowing dangerously, rage simmering just beneath the surface. "That shadow veils something vile, something you cannot, yet this very shadow reveals the depth of your heart," Poirot countered, voice firm as granite. Her reaction was instant, an insulted flare of indignation blooming. With a flicker of his candle's dying light, he saw the shadows dance across her face, battle lines drawn, her every feature masking the pang of guilt beneath. "Step aside, Poirot. You are playing with fire," Fellows urged, edging closer to the doorway, where the flicker of light struggled against the suffocating darkness. And yet, Poirot felt the walls of perception closing around them all, locking them in a ceaseless waltz between accusation and expediency. "Ah, dear Captain, to act without clarity leads one to unearth the very wilderness in which they dwell. Only in understanding the soul may one discern the deeper layers of treachery below," Poirot replied, forcing the idea into their consciousness, deliberately directing suspicion back to the body of witnesses all too willing to pass judgment upon their unseen enemy. "Are you suggesting we accuse one another? Is that your solution?" Mrs. Montgomery lashed out. "I demand you reveal your intent, Poirot." The word demand echoed in the darkness, igniting the embers of fiery resolve, yet also fear. Yet Poirot was relentless. "I suggest instead that we illuminate a truth you all prefer to remain cloaked. You, madame, have played your role perfectly, have you not?" He deliberately stepped closer, eyes boring into her, allowing the weight of his words to settle in, the air thick and cloying. "You sought vengeance against a man whose sins you believed could be forgiven, while that same sentiment rests like a dark cloud over us all." "What are you saying, Poirot?" Fellows whispered, the surprise almost breaking his voice. "Your husband, he is a man trapped in shadows, and perhaps you too. Deep down, do you seek to place blame? And does that blame lie upon the one you once cherished?" Poirot unveiled, the intensity cracking through the murky silence, allegations hovering with leaps and bounds. Bolts of tumultuous realization crackled around him, almost tangibly, a charged atmosphere where pasts collided, revealing veils of mistrust. "Perhaps he is the false ally here, for I sense treachery beneath your rejection of the truth. Perhaps you wish to silence it." Poirot's accusation rang clear, and tension crescendoed. The balance of power shifted subtly, like a delicate dance edging towards revelation. In that moment, uncertainty collapsed upon itself, revealing hidden motives swirling fiercely into light. Mrs. Montgomery's eyes narrowed dangerously, rage and something darker simmering under the surface. You dare play this game, Poirot, accusing me without any evidence? She spat, laughter rising in a hysterical crescendo, the veneer of composure cracking like ice upon the bitter waters of truth. But just as Poirot caught the glint of something hidden, shifting behind her facade, a sudden crash echoed from deep within the corridor, a violent burst of chaos seeping from the outside, a confrontation that promised to shatter whatever semblance of decorum remained. "Enough!" he bellowed, urgency threading through the chaos, even as the shadows seemed to congeal around him, gathering the unwelcome specters that refused to show their true forms. Identity is fragile, yet it fuels this storm. Let us bring forth our secrets. Before Poirot could utter another word, another terrible bang reverberated throughout the manor, a flurry of fears congregating towards its conclusion. Suddenly, the door splintered again, this time not from a force, but from retreat, an escape precipitated by an unseen hand. The figure slipped into the refuge of darkness beyond, leaving him with a cacophony of voices swirling in rising panic. In the ensuing silence, Poirot's heart thundered as the dread realization settled in. This chain of accusations hung by the thinnest thread, a dance of shadows still crouching in the corners, waiting, ready to envelop them once more. The moment hung precariously, and with a whispered urgency, the truth, now unformed, but vital, lingered on his lips, a discovery that would unravel them all. "Your husband, madame," he declared, voice low and visceral as a dark secret uncoiled in the stillness, "is not the only one privy to the depths of this betrayal." And from that moment on, the game had changed irrevocably, an unraveling thread pulling taut, and all the eyes now turned upon her. Suspicious, fearful, the cavernous darkness that birthed secrets remained unbroken. And still, the echoes of the past waited, ravenous for the strike of the first move. Chapter 11. The Haunting Confession. A deafening crash reverberated through the chamber, the sound of splintering wood echoing ominously as the door swung open with uncontrolled fury, revealing a dim figure silhouetted against the flickering candlelight. The air crackled with an eerie tension as Mrs. Montgomery, her features cast in shadow, advanced, her breath quickened and frantic. "It's you," she exclaimed, a horrifying realization dawning upon her as despair and fury melded into a singular, fearsome glare. From the depths of the encroaching darkness, a figure bristled, backlit by the dying flames of their only source of warmth, their eyes glinting with untold secrets wrapped in layers of treachery. "Stop! Do not come any closer," Poirot asserted, his voice slicing through the air like a knife. His mind raced, a maelstrom of calculations and psychological insights, demanding to be woven into a coherent narrative amidst the chaos. He could feel the cumulative weight of hidden truths pressing down upon him. Each accusation and veiled threat he had meticulously drawn forth now hung heavily in the atmosphere like an unspent lightning bolt. Suddenly, Fellows let out a gasp, his countenance pale. "What is that?" "By the light." He pointed towards the ground, where a glimmer had caught his eye. The chaos from moments before thickened around them as they leaned closer. An ornate necklace lay shattered at their feet, glistening like shards of a broken soul, creating a grotesque symmetry with the intriguing lines of deceit that snaked through their interactions. "It's hers, Lady Lorian's," Mrs. Montgomery whispered, horror creeping into her voice, mingling with a grief that danced perilously close to rage. "We can't ignore what this means. It could be the key to unraveling everything." "That is not all we must unravel, Madame," Poirot gently countered, keenly aware that revealing the depths of emotions swirling inside them would not only serve as illumination, but could also deepen the distrust, nipping at their heels like hounds on a scent. Mrs. Montgomery's eyes shone with a feral intensity, but doubt lingered within. Was the piece simply a token from their past, or did it unlock deeper wounds, thorns etched into the fabric of their entangled fates? The shadows, now vibrant against the candlelight, birthed apparitions of the fears they all sought to drown out, a disquieting display of their inner turmoil laid bare beneath the frenzied lens of suspicion. "Where is he? Where is my husband?" Mrs. Montgomery's voice broke, shattering her previous mask of defiance. "I cannot bear this torment. Tell me." The words poured forth with a raw urgency, a plea wrapped in desperation that echoed against the solid walls, conjuring images of the man she sought. But Poirot saw beyond the facade, sensing the tempest roiling beneath her skin, the lingering shadows of regret seemingly worse than the anguish of the present. "I assure you, Madame, your husband's fate may hold the answers you seek," Poirot replied, stepping forward. "But is he truly the victim you portray him to be?" Fellows shifted nervously, determined to keep his distance, but unable to let the tension seep away. "We cannot play these games. Someone needs to take responsibility for the chaos and destruction gathering around us." A spark ignited in his eyes, the fire of unresolved anger and palpable fear, extremities of panic unspooled by revelation. "Secrets lie heavily among us, Poirot. What does this all mean? The trappings of fate wrap tightly around you all. And yet," he paused, allowing the moment to elongate like a drawn bowstring, "there are other players here, shadows that whisper lies amidst the truths you hold dear." He turned sharply towards Mrs. Montgomery, his glare piercing the veils of her sorrow. "Tell me of him, the man you loved but have cast aside, the one whose desires burrowed too deeply into your conscience. What kept you from betraying him until now?" "Enough!" Mrs. Montgomery shrieked, the volume startling the very walls, shaking loose the dust of years left undisturbed. "I loved him, but it was never enough for either of us." Her words faded abruptly, the breath hitching in her throat. "It drove us into darkness, so that I would do things, horrible things, without even realizing," she continued, trembling now, a surrender, teetering on the brink of utter collapse. "What things? What darkness haunts you?" Poirot pressed, his heart racing. Was this the key to the dance of shadows that twisted around them? A momentary shiver danced through the room, a palpable current stirring the air as he leaned closer, eager to unlock the secrets she guarded so fiercely. "My husband," she whispered, eyes flickering to the ground as if the answer lay hidden within its shadow. "He spoke of revenge, of retribution, the sins of our past clawing their way to our present. It became an obsession, one that webbed itself into the very fabric of us." "Revenge? Against whom?" Fellows demanded, helplessly caught in the maelstrom, vulnerability playing across his thoughts, but fear ensuring he would guard his tongue, wary of losing themselves to the tidal wave of unheard secrets. "Against you all," she exclaimed, madness flickering within her gaze, simmering until it threatened to boil over. "You can never understand what he did, how he played the game. Suddenly, her entire countenance shifted, the splendor of her earlier poise crumbling to reveal a deeper, darker truth spiraling out into the open. "You all know nothing." A chill descended upon the room as the echo of her declaration lingered heavily. Poirot drew in a deep breath, feeling the mounting pressure shift, the air thick with undeclared fears, hungry for release. "We know more than you believe. Your husband holds the strings, but who speaks of cutting them first?" Moments hung laden, thick with unsaid words and emotional detonations. The quiet, bubbling like an impending storm. The candle flickered violently in the mounting tension as shadows crept closer, the almost palpable fear woven deeper into the chamber, waiting for someone to make a tragic turn. Then, from the depths of the corridor beyond, a groan erupted, mingling with the tension that wrapped around them like a noose, the dreaded specter of a footfall heralding ominous consequences. "Someone approaches," Poirot whispered, a soft tremor in his voice as the shifting shadows took on forms that fused anxiety with dread. There was no mistaking the sound. It bore the weight of impending calamity. The tiny flame that had brought precious illumination flickered again, dimming more rapidly than he would have liked, and in every heart the lingering question pressed heavy. Who was the true enemy lurking in that claustrophobic, darkness-drenched corridor? Then, the door swung open once more, revealing a figure cloaked in shadow whose intentions blurred the very lines of trust they had fought to hold dear. In that heartbeat, a scream pierced the silence, unraveling the night like a frayed ribbon as light flickered, sending them spiraling once more into chaos. "It's him!" someone screamed, the revelation igniting panic. "What have you done?" And with those words, the stage was set for the ultimate confrontation, a whirlwind of truths so tangled they threatened to ensnare them all. With obsession now, a sharper blade than before, poised for its fatal strike. Chapter 12. The Final Curtain. A shrill, agonizing scream filled the air, slicing through the suffocating darkness as Mrs. Montgomery staggered back against the wall, her pallor stark against the flickering shadows. The figure emerging from the corridor stood motionless, casting an elongated silhouette, illuminated only by the dying light of a single candle, fingers outstretched, grasping something ominous and glistening. Poirot's heart raced, each echoing heartbeat vibrating through the tension-laden atmosphere. "What have you done?" she gasped, her voice cracking under the weight of terror and accusation. "Senseless accusations, madame," the figure replied, a deep, unsettling calm enveloping him, his voice smooth like velvet, yet icy as a winter night. "Stay where you are," Poirot commanded, stepping protectively in front of the others, eyes narrowing as he assessed the newcomer. His mind spun, drawing invisible lines in a web of emotional aftermath, every word spoken like a strand of silk. Who was this man, and what stranglehold of desperation drove him? The figure advanced, eyes glinting with malignant delight, and in that moment, Poirot noted the faint glint of a silver blade poised dangerously in the dim light. "You misunderstand me, Poirot," he said, his facade slipping for an instant. "I'm not here to indulge in your games." Pointing the blade, no longer a secret, but a promise of doom, he continued, "You will find the truth around these very walls, hidden in the knots of our shared histories. And yet, you reveal so much through your threats," Poirot murmured, tightening his grip on a nearby candlestick, glancing towards Mrs. Montgomery, whose breaths came in shallow gasps. What compels you to dance with darkness, I wonder? Is it fear or merely revenge festering within your heart? A figure of despair looked on behind him. Fellows stood petrified, torn between loyalty and dread. Her husband, Mr. Montgomery, had been pulled into the fray once again, even though his fate had been shrouded in uncertainty and dark whispers. What dark truths lay entwined in that family, draped like cobwebs over a past now too ghastly to recount? The air crackled, thick with anticipation and unspent rage. Poirot felt as if he was standing at the edge of a precipice, peering into the abyss, a venture so alluring, yet fraught with shadows that threatened to consume them all. The unveiled truth rippled just beneath the surface. What is the meaning of this treachery? Poirot pressed, pushing his thoughts through the thick fog of fear. What connects you to Lady Lorian's shattered necklace, correlatively lying at our feet, a bitter token of mourning for so many lost? The flickering light caught the levity in the figure's bemused expression, his confidence fragile beneath the weight of accusation. It connects me to so many things, so many feelings, he countered, the malice tinged with vulnerability. You don't know the half of it, Poirot. None of. You do. Haven't you wondered why such fear reigns? Just then, a metallic clatter echoed through the chamber. Poirot's gaze flicked towards Fellows, whose trembling hands clutched a secateur's, a garden tool incongruous with their grave setting. I'll not let you use that against us, Fellows roared, the courage flaring up in him like a dying candle, igniting its last breath of flame. Your bluster can't disguise your fear, Fellows. Yet, fear can be a powerful ally, the figure murmured, his cold eyes dispassionately surveying them as if analyzing prey. Each of us stands on the precipice of our own design, twisted by what we dare choose to keep secret. With resolute intent, Poirot took a step forward, not to confront, but to dissect, his little grey cells working at full capacity, piecing the jigsaw of human emotion surrounding him. What are the sins we engage in to justify our transgressions? He mused aloud, his eyes pinning down his adversary. This desire to place blame onto another's shoulders rather than face our own misdeeds. But let us not be ensnared in tangled motivations. Speak, and the truth shall rise from its urn. A low chuckle escaped the figure's lips. You think you wield the truth, detective? It is a game we play. Betrayal lies thicker than blood in our veins, and around it a crown sits, gleaming yet wrought from decay. He lifted the knife higher, shadows warping his face, revealing features laden with anguished torment. Who are you really? Poirot bit out, his patience cracking. Have we descended so deeply into madness that perception is now clearer than the reflection in the glass? Speak in earnest and concede the final note to this stringed affair. Perhaps, the man said, with seductive calm, you will find your answers not in the spaces between, but rather in the exhibit of our pasts, those who bleed remorse and pain, intertwining while playing at shadows. Or perhaps dread hung in the air as he began to step backward, slowly melding into the enveloping darkness with an expression that betrayed more than he revealed, a flicker of indecision behind maelstroms of delusion. Wait, Poirot shouted, heart racing, focusing desperately on the dim light that illuminated this precarious duel. What do you intend? Slipping deeper into shadow, the figure grinned, a flash of innocence married to prowess, as he stepped out of the candle's meager reach and into an echoing silence. A curtain must fall before the final bow is taken. Poirot, and it may be the last show for all of you. A sharp intake of breath broke through the group, tension culminating as a final terrible sound reverberated through the space, the unmistakable click of a door latch sealing their fates, slamming shut behind him. Just then, an explosion shattered the thick air. A mere heartbeat later, Poirot's world erupted in chaos as darkness swarmed, the screams blending into a cacophony of despair, leaving in its wake the haunting question: what truth had begun unraveling, only to elude capture once more?